him sometimes when he says this stuff, but that's the sort of thing that he's rebelling against, is this like force that takes a hold of one's life and from the inside seems perfectly fine, but from the outside has obvious problems.
And one of the reasons why I gave that kind of like introduction about my religious beliefs and Martin's religious beliefs is also because in this particular area, I think about a lot of the things that Nietzsche's talking about here. Like when I stopped believing these were the things that seemed important to me, like just the like established historical facts of how the Bible was constructed seemed to me to immediately complicate any notion of it as this like delivered from on high text. And there are ways that religious people can, I think, justify this as a religious thing, but that's never how it's handled. Like it's never how you're taught it, like as part of the religion. Yeah. You don't learn like these like weird histories of it that make it seem more human and less divine.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's kind of what Nietzsche is talking about here.
Mm-hmm. And I was listening to a podcast a couple months ago. I really like it's called The Partially Examined Life. It's a podcast. It's a philosophy thing where they, sometimes they bring on, interviewees, but usually they sort of talk about books that they read and, have like 2-hour-long discussions about Nietzsche or, about Hannah Arendt or things like that. But they brought on a couple. I think one was. I think they were all like religious, like as their job. They're like preachers or whatever the equivalent of that was, in different sects. I think there were 2 of them, and they were both very liberal believers. And they brought them on to talk about sort of more modern arguments about like the existence of God and how all those arguments pan out. And one of the things one of the people said was, look, like, lots of people like the new atheists, but, I look at them and they don't even touch the sort of thing that I believe. Like, what I believe is so different from the thing that they critique that I don't even know how to talk to them about this stuff. It's like, we just have completely different definitions. Now, when I read someone like Nietzsche, it's like hot fire. Like that's the guy that's critiquing the stuff that I believe. Mm-hmm. And like I was saying, like it's great to read for that reason. Mm-hmm. Like, this is where the best criticisms are.
Yeah, no, I mean he's talking about religion in ways that, right, exactly, aren't the way the new atheists are talking about it.
Exactly. Yeah.
He's not trying to be a dick about it.
Yeah, no,
well,
like,
sometimes
he is.
But he is a dick.
Yeah. Sometimes he's also just trying to be a dick and knows he's being a dick. Yeah.
But he does that to secular people too. I mean,
yeah,
he tries to both embrace and be a dick at various times in the book to various people. But he's especially, I mean, he hits on the religion stuff hard.
But oh gosh, what am I trying to say here? Well, we were talking about the God is dead quote. And how different the context of that quote is than people think it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, Nietzsche doesn't seem to be damning religion, just trying to like analyze it historically.
Yeah, I mean that's his big contribution. Like I think that Nietzsche doesn't think I think Nietzsche would be glad to see religion go away.
Right.
For instance.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, he is damning it in that sense. But it's like the reasons that he's damning it are that look like it. He thinks that it leads to a group of people that sort of look beyond this world to find their satisfaction, and as such, it's easy to subjugate them.
Ta-Nehisi Coates, who I think I mentioned the last time we streamed, he's a journalist for The Atlantic. He's a black guy. He's also the lead writer for Black Panther right now.
Okay.
Wrote a book last year called Between the World and Me, which was a letter to his son. Mm-hmm. And it was about... I don't actually know what the entire context of the story is about, but I believe it involves Ta-Nehisi Coates as a teenager, watching one of his friends die in some sort of violent act. And it's Ta-Nehisi Coates explaining to his son what the reality of life is for the black body in America. Like there's like this really blunt explanation of like all the dangers that people of color in this country face. And Ta-Nehisi Coates, contrary to a lot of popular black black political figures, Ta-Nehisi Coates is a vocal atheist. And he specifically writes about what it means to experience state oppression when you don't have any promise of an afterlife. When all you know is that this oppression exists in your life as Travis snipes these people, and
it's a good metaphor for the state.
And
hey, the state's a tool, man.
All right,
different conversation.
I mean, just essentially this idea that you have this life and you experience this life in constant terror that something horrible can happen to you or your loved ones, and
like a sniper.
You have no promise of anything good ever after you're gone. This is it.
Yeah.
And that's really powerful to me as someone who doesn't believe, because it impels me to fix as much as I can while I'm still alive.
Yeah, and right, I think that's right, and Nietzsche, we have to remember, was also critical of things like Marxism, right, and would have been, I imagine, critical of things like fascism for the same reasons, but he thinks that even these, like, any big handed-down ideology is probably aiding somebody and hurting somebody else, and the people that sort of it's just given to and accepted blindly are usually the ones that it's hurting. So, everything okay?
Yeah, just making sure nobody can code in the neighborhood.
Okay.
We don't live in a good neighborhood.
We live in a fine neighborhood.
We do not live in a good neighborhood.
It has teeth. No,
And meth dealers.
And pill dealers. But I mean, if you're nice to
yeah, and hillbilly heroin dealers.
Okay, we're not going to talk about that.
I'm going to will this conversation into existence.
Beyond existence, man.
Remember to project your voices so the camera can
I'm
hear you.
going to will this conversation into existence.
We're beyond existence, man.